Hello and welcome to lesson 88 of the Learning Guitar series. In this particular lesson we're going to look at the second mode of harmonic minor, which is called the Locrian Natural 6. Let's delve straight into the PDF that is accompanying this lesson. So the Locrian Natural 6 mode, also written with obviously with a natural sign, as the second mode of the harmonic minor scale, is an important tool in music theory, especially in the context of a minor 2-5-1 progression, as we will see in the future. In terms of scale and arpeggio construction, and in terms of comparison with the Locrian mode, the Locrian Natural 6, in terms of horizontal structures, hence the scale, we are looking at 1, flat 2, flat 3, 4, flat 5, natural 6, and flat 7. And of course the vertical structure, which is the derivation of the horizontal in this case, will be 1, flat 3, flat 5, flat 7, flat 9, 11, and 13. And if you remember the major modes, the 7th degree of the major modes in this case, so we're looking at Locrian. So in this case I'll do it in G, just as an example. But we know this is a Locrian scale. And in this case, Locrian Natural 6, as the name implies, we're looking at a natural 6 as opposed to a flat 6. That's pretty much the gist of it. And as you can see, if I continue with the scale, fingering-wise, we're back to, the gauge system and the 5 shapes that we studied for harmonic minor in the previous 4 lessons. As such, because we have 1, flat 3, flat 5, flat 7, this kind of scale and arpeggio applies to minor 7, flat 5 type of chords, given its intervals. And compared to the Locrian mode, the Locrian Natural 6 differs because of its natural 6, which softens the dissonance of the scale and provides a smoother, more melodic quality. And in terms of chords, used as an example, G Locrian Natural 6, we can derive from the full extended arpeggio, hence this one. So this arpeggio is basically the vertical structure. And if we take the first 4 notes, of course we have, in this case, G half diminished. But it's very common, especially harmonically, to apply substitutions to this chord, but even as arpeggios. Let's take, for example, starting from the flat 3, flat 3, flat 5, flat 7, flat 9. If we look at the note, we have B flat, D flat, F, and A flat. And if we think of B flat as the root note, now D flat is the flat 3, F is the 5, and B flat is A flat is the flat 7. And this becomes a B flat minor 7. So this is a very common substitution. The same way if we take D flat, F, A flat, and C, so now we're looking at flat 5, flat 7, flat 9, 11, we have a D flat major 7. And if we keep going, now we have an F minor major 7, A flat major 7, sharp 5, etc. Definitely very common in this context. It can be, and you'll see in the moment we study some jazz, is to use B flat minor 7 as a possible substitution, but even from an arpeggio point of view in terms of soloing, or D flat major 7. So let's see what this sounds in terms of, let's apply some arpeggios to this chord and let's substitute those arpeggios according to the harmony theory we just looked at. So I'm going to just read G minor major 7 arpeggio, and of course, the scale that goes with that, Locrian Natural 6. And of course it sounds, sounds nice. And we say that it applies in terms of vertical structure, it's an half diminished chord, so we can use half diminished arpeggio. And that sounds, all the guide tones are there. At the same time, harmony theory tells us that I can use B flat minor instead, so B flat minor 7, arpeggio. And now we're extending, we're introducing basically the flat 9 into the mix. And if we also want to add 11, we can use, as we say, the D flat major 7. They all sound very nice. And of course, when we look at jazz in the future, we look at this also from an harmonic perspective. If we continue with the PDF, now the most common harmonic context for this scale is the minor 7 flat 5 chord, which acts as a 2 chord in a minor 2-5-1 progression. So they might need an explanation at this stage. If you remember the major modes, in the major modes, we looked at the fact that chord number 2 is a minor chord, and we call it Dorian, and chord number 5 is a dominant 7 chord, and we call it Mixolydian, and of course chord number 1 is Aonian. And it's a very common progression, especially in jazz, what we call a 2-5-1. And 2-5-1 is basically a chord progression where chord number 2 is minor, chord number 5 is dominant, chord number 1 is major. In the key of G, we know that G, if G is chord number 1, A minor will be chord number 2, and D7 will be chord number 5. That's the chords you get when you harmonize the G major scale. So a major 2-5-1 would sound like A minor, D7, G major. Now that we're approaching the minor harmonic modes, there is also something called a minor 2-5-1. And a minor 2-5-1 derives from the harmonic minor modes, where chord number 2, which is the one we're studying now, is a half diminished chord, minor 7 flat 5. And once we study also chord number 5, we will find out that the chord number 5 is also dominant, but it's an altered dominant. And of course, chord number 1 is minor. You know, it's just the first degree of minor harmonic. So in the case of G, so far we studied the first degree, minor harmonic, and so it's a G minor or it's G minor major 7. And where chord number 2 now it becomes, in this case, A minor, A half diminished, A minor 7 flat 5. And as we get in the future to chord number 5, that will be a dominant altered. So the minor 2-5-1 in this case would be, say, A minor half diminished, D7 altered, and G minor or G minor major 7. Hence the importance of chord number 2, and in the future we'll come back to this minor 2-5-1 progression from an harmonic point of view. Melodically we're tackling it now, but from a harmonic point of view it becomes very important. And as an heads up, as you noticed, because of substitution, instead of, for example, in this case, instead of thinking of A half diminished, we know I could go a tone and a half up and play C minor, and then it would be, so the progression would become C minor to G minor. That's a 2-2-1, right? Instead of playing from the minor harmonic, I could do this. And this, in this case, is just a substitution. The same way I could go E flat major 7. And that would all work, but, you know, let's not get too ahead. At some point when once we cover the entire minor harmonic modes, we'll delve deeper both into major 2-5-1, minor 2-5-1, but from an harmonic perspective, and then how that influenced the melodic choices we can make. Let's go back to the PDF. So in particular in jazz harmony, the minor 2-5-1 progression is the cornerstone of resolution, and it typically involves a 2-chord, half diminished, a 5-chord altered, in this case it could be C7, and a 1-chord tonic minor, for example, F minor major 7. The Locrian natural 6 is the ideal scale for improvisation and harmonization over the 2-chord because it reflects these hard chord tones while also introducing melodic tension and leading naturally to the 5-chord. And here there is some example. In conclusion, before moving on with more practical study, the Locrian natural 6 mode is a versatile and essential scale for minor harmony, particularly in minor 2-5-1 progression. It combines the darkness of the Locrian mode with the melodic lift from the natural 6, offering a unique balance of tension and beauty. Mastering this mode will expand your harmonic and improvisational vocabulary, especially in jazz, classical, and fusion context. Once you move on to the neck diagrams, here you have the scales. This is in G, obviously transposed in all keys. And you know, if you studied properly the harmonic minor that we've done so far, these shapes, then it is nothing new for you, except that now they're displaced compared to, say, G harmonic minor. And in blue, you can see basically the underlying chord, so the minor major 7. Follow that with the modal arpeggio, and so basically this is the vertical structure where you can see 1 flat 3, the entire scale spelled as an arpeggio, 1 flat 3, flat 5, flat 7, flat 9, 11, and 13, and 1, and the 13 is basically the natural 6. Again, 5 shape of it, and followed by just the minor 7 flat 5 arpeggios, and follow that you have Locrian natural 6, in this case chords. Again, these are in G. They need to be transposed in all keys, obviously. As usual, a black dot means you're playing the root note, and a white dot is just for a reference, so you're only playing this shape. And the chords, they progress. Again, five cages start from fret 3 because this is in G minor, and as you progress now, you're going up the neck and you're covering the entire neck of the guitar with this type of chords. Of course, this type of chords will contain also the natural 6. Sometimes it's going to be just the guide tones. As you can see, there is quite a lot of them, so, you know, patiently, you might want to practice all this material also with the aid of the backing track that I'm associating with this lesson. But first and foremost, you might just want to loop a minor major 7 chord and practice both your scales, practice the arpeggios from a melodic point of view, and you can just, you know, improvise around that concept. So let's say, for example, like we can loop G minor major 7. And you can just, you know, melodically, beside practicing, you know, the material pedantically, just to make sure that you still remember the 5 shape of harmonic minor and the way you're displacing them. And of course, you can start visualizing the chords. And you can practice this with the chords from the PDF. And of course, you can practice the arpeggio. And same thing with the chord. So in other words, here what we're dealing with is more like the displacement compared to before. So a G harmonic minor would look like this. And in a way, if you think of G Locrian natural 6 as the second degree of, in this case, F harmonic minor, what you're playing when you're playing G Locrian natural 6 is basically F harmonic minor. In fact, F harmonic minor looks like this. And G Locrian natural 2 looks exactly the same. And in fact, the displacement at the end of the day, when you're playing G Locrian natural 6, you're basically playing F harmonic minor. And you could even literally think of it that way from a photographic memory point of view. But the risk is when you think F harmonic minor, you might visualize the F minor major 7 arpeggio. Instead, if you think in terms of G Locrian natural 6, although it's exactly the same note, but in your head you might visualize this arpeggio instead, which is the guide tones of that chord. When it comes to the backing track, which I'm going to demonstrate to you in a second, what you're dealing with is chord number 2, harmonic minor. In this case, it's going to be D, so it's D half diminished, and we're resolving it. So you can practice the tension that chord number 2 produces, and then the resolution. To make things interesting, I made the resolution major, just because that way, you know, you can practice 2 different scales. So for D, we're using Locrian natural 6, and then for C major, which is the resolution, you can either play C Ionian from the major modes, or you can play C Lydian, again from the major modes, and you know, you get different effects. But before we do that, before, you know, I'll show you the backing track, I also want to show you something interesting that connects to it. So if we take a D half diminished chord, or D minor 7 flat 5, it will look, for example, like this, where root note, flat 3, flat 5, flat 7. But if for a second we only look at these 3 notes, these 3 notes should remind you something. Let's move the root note, and instead of being here, let's put it here where the flat 3 is. And for a second, let's delete this. this particular chord you're looking at is F minor, literally. So in a way, an F minor triad is already contained, as we've seen, into the chord. What's interesting in this case, as we go from D off diminished to C major 7, and C major 7, here is your root note. C major 7 looks like this. So here's root note 3, 5, 7. But once again, you still see this shape. And this shape is basically E minor, because this is an A minor triad. Don't worry about this note here. So in playing D off diminished to C major, you can also substitute them in terms of the way you play rhythm, or even in terms of soloing, in terms of chord construction, etc. Because what you're dealing with is an F minor, which is here, moving to an E minor, which is here. I'll show it to you in practical terms, although, as I said, you can use the backing tracks, to practice rhythm guitar. But the progression is this. And that's tension resolution. I'm going to superimpose this F minor to E minor. This is an F minor triad. You see, just works. This is your E minor. And of course I can use inversions, and we have studied inversions already. Which means I can also use the arpeggios. And obviously the minor 7 arpeggio works. In terms of scales, obviously we know. Here is your Locrian natural 6. Ionian C. And as I mentioned before, instead of maybe using C Ionian, you can also experiment with C Lydian. So you have this kind of sound. This is Locrian natural 6, C Lydian. That's the Lydian sound though. So you can see, like, it's an interesting progression. It's basically tension, resolution, tension, resolution. One last thing before we conclude this lesson. So if you understood a little bit of the theory, we're looking at D off diminished, and for that particular chord, we're thinking of using, instead of Locrian, which it will be a scale from the major modes that tackle that chord, we're looking at the Locrian natural 6 instead, second degree of harmonic minor. But if it's the second degree, so if D is chord number 2, that must mean that C is chord number 1, which means that the notes of D Locrian natural 6 and the notes of C harmonic minor are the same. Same note, different chord. within that mode. And a progression that goes D half diminished into C major, I could literally think of that progression as, from a scale point of view, C minor harmonic going into C Ionian or C Lydian. So I'm just going skylically, going back and forth from a C scale to a C scale. Arpeggio-wise, obviously not. Arpeggio-wise, you might want to think of. So because you have your guide tone, and of course you have your substitutions, as I mentioned. You could also think instead of D, we know that from the flat 3 we can play minor, so you become F minor arpeggio, F minor 7, going to C major 7. But as I said, F minor 7 and then E minor 7 will work, as I demonstrated to you. So you're going from F minor to E minor instead of maybe going from F to C major, because all your phrasing in terms of arpeggio, they're just moving in semitones. We also know that we move the sharp 5 and play the major 7 arpeggio, sorry, a flat 5 and play the major 7 arpeggio. So from D, it will be A flat major 7 going into C major, and you have this kind of sound. This is A flat major 7, C major 7, F, A flat major 7, Lydian, that's A flat, that's C. So as you can see, this is pretty packed in terms of not only like as a scale itself, but the possibilities that because of this tension resolution, the importance it has, this chord number 2 within the tension resolution, concepts within harmonic theory, and we already looked at a little bit some substitutions. Again, transposing all keys, otherwise it'll be stuck in G. I hope you enjoyed the lesson. Practice, and until next time, enjoy practicing, enjoy playing. Cheers, bye.